Bullshit.
I'm Dave Mastovich, and this is the No Bullshit Marketing Show. Last episode, I broke down why marketing hasn't worked, and it hasn't. Whether it's a startup, mid-market, or enterprise company, marketing hasn't worked. I walked through the three major factors that combine together to decide why marketing hasn't worked. The first of those three factors is the internal team trap. The next is the external partnership problem. And the third is the leadership disconnect. In that last episode, I touched on each of those briefly, and I promised you that I would dedicate episodes to each of those three. That's what I'm doing today with first, the internal team trap. What's the internal team trap? It ties to how your internal team is unable to do real marketing that drives growth. And there are 8 specific factors that tie to the internal team trap. I actually put notes down, so I might look down from time to time to make sure I don't miss anything, because I want to cover these 8 as clearly and as succinctly as possible so you can know what they are, and then I'm going to tell you ways to fix them and avoid them. The first is that internal marketing teams are set up to be order takers, not strategists. That's the first of these factors that roll up into the internal team trap. They're set up to be order takers, not strategists. Marketing often doesn't have a seat at the leadership table. And when they do, it's more often than not in a kind of subservient role. So when you don't have a seat at the table, that's whenever the mid-market company has a marketing specialist or marketing director. They're not even at the key leadership meetings. Or it's whenever the enterprise value company has some key leadership teams, and the marketing person maybe isn't at those meetings. Or it's when that $100 million a year in annual revenue company has marketing at the table, but they're in there in a subservient role to kind of do as they're told. So the first factor under the internal team trap is they're set up to be order takers, not strategists. The second is that marketing gets judged on opinions, not outcomes. I don't like the way that looked. That just didn't have sizzle. I'm not sure what they were thinking about when they did that program. Marketing gets judged on opinions, not outcomes. So that puts you in a situation where you become a taste test instead of a growth engine if you're judged on opinions rather than outcomes. The third one is about clarity or the lack thereof. So I'm going to give you a stat. Only 28% of marketing leaders say they have clear success metrics tied to business outcomes. It's a Gartner study. Only 28% of marketing leaders say they have clear success metrics tied to business outcomes. 63% say that stakeholders don't understand marketing's role. Now, I will tell you, I think that 63% is low. That must have been an optimistic group of marketing leaders surveyed to say that 63% of stakeholders don't understand marketing's role. I think it's even higher than that as far as not understanding marketing's role. The fourth of these 8 factors that roll up into causing the internal team trap is they report to the wrong place. Marketing reports to sales sometimes. I've seen a report to the CFO, operations, HR, or you pulled out the org chart and you looked and said, which one has enough space to add a little box to it? Marketing reports to the wrong place. I don't believe that your top marketing person at a company that does $135 million in annual revenue, that top marketing person should have HR reporting to them. I don't think that's wise. And so is the converse. Your top marketing leader should not be reporting to HR, operations, or finance, or sales. Marketing has to have a seat at the table and report directly to the chief executive. So that is just how it is, because marketing is a strategic function. It's an effectiveness function. It's not a tactical function or an efficiency function. Repeat that now. Strategic and effective versus tactical and efficient. If you were a strategic and effectiveness function, you have to be reporting to the top person and helping with that long-term vision and strategy and the execution of the way to reach it through storytelling and through marketing and lead generation. Number 5 ties to turf builders. Because up to this point, if you are a leader outside of marketing and you happen to listen to this podcast, you're thinking, this no bullshit guy's full of shit. He's talking about everybody but the marketing team. Because I went through that. They're set up to be order takers, not strategists. Marketing is judged on opinions, not outcomes. And there's a lack of clarity from leadership tied to business outcomes, and they report to the wrong place. Well, now I got to one which ties to the internal marketing team. So if you're the internal marketing team person, you were excited in this first 4. Now this one's about you, turf builders. Now, this comes down to when there's a lack of clarity from leadership, regardless of department, function, person, when there's a lack of clarity from leadership, people protect what they can. So lack of clarity from leadership, people protect what they can. We've walked through how there's a lack of clarity around marketing's being tied to business outcomes, being tied to success metrics, and people not understanding marketing's role, what marketing does, and how they do it. So when there's a lack of clarity from leadership, people protect what they control, and that leads to turf builders. So now you as a marketer have to listen to this and say, yes, I've most likely been guilty of being a turf builder. So now that you're a little agitated, you're maybe not willing to admit that, or maybe you're saying, yeah, just a little bit, you've probably done it, and it's probably impacted a lot of people. Here's what it is. That turf building comes into effect in a lot of ways. Other departments start trying to give input to marketing in a positive way, and they're clueless. They include with respect to marketing. And so they're bringing input that isn't necessarily the greatest. Just like if you went in to tell them about how to make something foot on the CFO side, they'd look at you the same way. But you start getting defensive, and then sometimes they bring in good ideas, and they come bring in something that's even based on insights that they learned from people or things they heard. And there's a defensiveness that comes up. That's part of turf building. Another part of turf building is the leader says, I'm going to do something to help them. I'm going to bring in an outside expert. It could be a marketing consultant. It could be an ad agency. It could be a PR firm, whatever. The turf builder comes into play. Oh, what are you doing? You think I don't know what I'm doing? And it's just the turf building. So part of the internal team trap, number 5, is turf builders. Number 6 is make it look pretty. Make it look pretty. I have to look at this stat to get it right. 71% of mid-marketers, so 71% of marketers at mid-market companies say they are evaluated on brand consistency, not business impact. So if you're a mid-market company, meaning you're probably doing anywhere from 25 million in annual revenue to 150 million in annual revenue. You probably got anywhere from 100 employees to 500 employees. That type of company, even 50 employees, that type of company is mid-market. And mid-market's loosely defined differently by a lot of people. But in general, if you're at a mid-market company, the marketers at mid-market companies, 71% say they're evaluated on brand consistency, not business impact. So when that's happening, you're being evaluated on brand consistency, not impact. You think about this for a minute. If you are a progressive, strategic, talented marketing leader that understands creative direction, that understands marketing solutions and strategy, that wants to lead a marketing team and be tied to business growth through generating positive quality leads and having sales outcomes that work, are you going to stay at a company where they're worried about brand consistency and that's how you're evaluated rather than about the solutions you can come up with and the success you can drive? The answer is most likely no. So what that is, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're going to lose the real marketers because you wanted to assess them and evaluate them on brand consistency. You don't need a real marketer to be evaluated on brand consistency. You need a marketing process engineer type person, and then that's going to perpetuate all this stuff under the internal trap. So that's number 6. Number 7 is tied to enterprise value companies, because I've been talking a lot about mid-market size companies. Enterprise value companies do this. I went out and talked to some colleagues of mine at similar positions of mine and said, give me one of the most latest example. And we were talking about how enterprise value companies, the large companies, the ones that everybody says, oh, let's land them. If we land them, we're in great shape. Well, they're human, so they pose some problems too. And what the enterprise value companies do in general is they aren't nimble enough because of the bureaucracy and how many levels of approvals they have to get to. So because of that, they're going to get beaten by someone their size who is marketing driven and customer experience driven and able to adapt and move quickly, or they're going to get beaten by startups and mid-market companies who are able to be more nimble and adapt and move quickly. So I asked for an example, and one example that I was given was, let's rework the digital asset management platform. Let's rework the digital asset management platform. The second one was, well, we need to have a marketing committee or a steering committee or a special group, a project group for that initiative, which they do when it's something new in marketing. So the seventh one is the enterprise level, and it's about processes and forms and commitment and committees and bureaucracy. And here's the stat from that one. The average enterprise marketing initiative requires 8 approvals before anything happens. The average enterprise marketing initiative requires 8 approvals before anything happens. How are you going to move quick? How are you going to be nimble? How are you going to adapt to the marketplace with marketing when you had to go through 8 approvals? So that is tied to the process and bureaucracy is number 7. Number 8, under the internal team trap, the internal marketing team has no time for strategy. A McKinsey study said that most marketing teams spend 70% or more of their time on reactive work. 70% or more of their time on reactive work. Strategy then gets whatever crumbs are left over. Marketing, creative marketing solutions that impact customer experience get whatever crumbs are left over for that 70% or more. And so you really have to look at that and think about that 8th one and say, that ties back to all of these. These all work together to cause the internal team trap. So what can you do, whether you're a marketing specialist, a marketing director, the marketing VP, the COO, CFO, the CEO, the owner, the president of the company? The first is marketing should have clear goals tied to business outcomes. And that means having someone understands clear goals that can tie to business outcomes from a marketing standpoint to help drive that and work on those goals together. The second is having your narrative in place where you have the big idea and you have supporting storytelling pillars that roll up to that big idea, because then there is no bureaucracy on what the message is. There is no 8 steps of approval to get something ready to go from a storytelling, marketing, creative standpoint. You've got a big idea and 4 or 5 strategic storytelling pillars that roll up into that. If all of the conversations, if all of the decks, if all of the videos, if all of the posting, if all of the blogs and social, if all of the discussion, if all the sales calls ties to the big idea narrative and these strategic storytelling pillars, if all of it ties to that, some of it looser than the others, some of it's going to be scripted almost, others going to be just talking in conversations. But if that's all tied together, the second step of solving this is if you have that narrative down and everybody knows what it is and you're talking about it internally and then using it externally around the big idea and the storytelling pillars, that eliminates a lot of the friction that we said on these 8 factors that create the internal team trap. The third is you have to have a rhythm, a system that includes insights, which lead to solutions, ideas to enhance the customer experience, and strategies. So you have the insights that lead to solutions and strategies, which then drives the storytelling. Then you have the storytelling execution, which drives outcomes from sales standpoint, outcomes from a brand standpoint, outcomes from retention and recruitment of employees standpoint. That all comes back to having this flow, this rhythm that starts with insights, and then it's solutions and strategies that drive stories, then activation and execution of your marketing and your storytelling that leads to results. So that's what will solve the internal team trap. Now, the key takeaway about this is good people get stuck in bad systems. And that's what I've learned throughout my career, because when I was first coming up, I just thought, oh, this is just a field where there's a lot of people that aren't really able to do well, and they like making things look pretty. Well, there's some that do. There's some that are more than happy with being in a tactical role and just making things look pretty. But they're okay if they report to someone that has that vision. And that's what I've learned over the course of my life. In the last 15, 20 years, I've been talking about how good people get stuck in bad systems. And I'm telling you that we've got to have better systems around marketing so we can avoid the internal team trap. And what's up next is the external partner problem. Will have its own dedicated episode. And after that, it'll be the leadership disconnect. If you're tired of your marketing not working, call me. We'll figure it out together. No bullshit, just growth.
Bullshit.